Okay, so for those of you that are new and don't know me, my name is Heather Hankamer, and I am the executive director of the CCC Leadership Program, which is a leadership program for women in nonprofit. Recently, we've also launched the sister program, which is called Expand, and that is for women in any sector. So we are thrilled to have you as a part of our community because the last C in CCC is community, and that's what these monthly get togethers are all about. And I'm so thrilled to have Jasmin here with us today. So here's the format. So as we go along, if you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat. I've got lots of questions, of course, and we'll break at the end so that you can specifically ask Jasmin questions and learn from her wisdom. So I'm thrilled. Jasmin is, oh gosh, she's so many things. I'm lucky to call her friend, but she's a serial entrepreneur. She's a marketer. She is an entrepreneur. She's one of the biggest supporters of women I know today. And she is also has a role in the Economic Development Office in Frisco, which I have no idea how they snagged her away and got her to agree. But she is very involved in Frisco and in all the fun things that are happening. I mean, all the amazing things that are happening in Frisco. And she also is the founder of something called Her Texas, which I'm going to ask her at the end to talk to us about because I think it's something that we should all not only know about, but get involved in. So women, it's the true women supporting women. So Jasmin, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so first we have to start with how we met, right?
I know.
So okay, so let's rewind back to 2011.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right. We were just babes.
That's it.
And Jasmin submitted a application to audition for TEDx SMU, and the title of her talk is "What do Ike and Tina Turner? What do Ike and Tina Turner have in common with social media?" Is that right? Tell me.
What Ike and Tina Turner have in common with social media?
Yeah, and immediately I was intrigued. Like, you had me at the title. So the funniest thing about that was that was the very first time we ever had done auditions, and so we had a tie that night.
Yeah, that's right.
And you won the right to give that talk on the stage, and we've just been friends ever since.
Yes.
I'll follow you anywhere.
Same. Heather said same.
First of all, why did you put yourself out there for that?
At the time I was in Leadership Dallas, and I was the only entrepreneur out of my class. And I joined Leadership Dallas at the time for that reason. As an entrepreneur, it's hard to build community sometimes. And I also knew like I needed to build relationships just around other leaders in the city. And I wanted to know more about Dallas from the business side of things. And at that time I was like, you know what, if I'm going to really try to put myself out there, I really need to start thinking about how to market myself to different communities. And SMU's my alma mater. And so when I heard about that, I was like, oh, this seems really cool. And I was thinking about what conversation at that time, 2011, what was kind of happening. It's interesting that when I listen to the talk now, it's definitely a different time, still some of the same challenges, but I wanted to talk about the challenging relationship between social media and education. Because in 2011, it wasn't new, but it was still not something that everybody was using like we are today. And I really wanted to kind of like, what this relationship between, can teachers be replaced by social media? Because at the time, everyone was like, oh, I'll just Google it or whatever. And I was like, what tumultuous relationship can I think about to compare the relationship between educators and social media? I was like, oh, duh, Ike and Tina Turner. Yeah. because it was one of these things where they actually needed one another. Of course, it had lots of negative pieces of Tina's story, but it was through all that negativity and all that just tumultuousness and figuring out where her path was going to end, that she ended up creating her own path and her own beautiful career, I think was a result of what she had to go through. And so that was really the initial kind of analogy was, yeah, okay, it's a little weird right now, but we both need each other. Educators need social media and technology, and social media and technology needs leaders who are going to move the connection point to the masses. And so that was kind of what I was thinking was I always look at things from a different angle. And so I was like, you know what? TEDx SME might be an opportunity for me to A, get my name out there, but B, I bet no one's going to talk about this. So
it's true. It was a very, very unique talk that caught our eye from the very beginning. And the plus of that was getting to know you and love you and being just a part of your world for so many years. So, okay, so let's dive into the book.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull some notes up too, because I always, so I don't ramble, because to your point, Heather, I could be doing the talking, would be 2 hours. And I'm like, we should go to happy hour. Let's all meet up. So
it's true. It's true. Okay, so the title of this book is Pretty Girls Have Options. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about the title, because that's an interesting title for a book about social media and branding.
Well, so same thing I was thinking about as a marketer. I was like, well, I want people to read the book, and then I also want people to talk about it. And then I always thinking about the thesis or the topic of something and how can I relate it to another bigger conversation. And so this idea of what it means to be pretty and how we navigate as businesswomen came up because I had an agency at one time, a full big agency, and we did a shoot with the model, stunning model, and we were downtown, and was on the side break from the shoot, and we were just talking about dating. Even back then, Heather, I was still complaining about dating, which that's a whole other conversation. Literally, the stuff literally what I was complaining about in 2012, I have the same complaint, but that's another combo. But I was talking to her about, her name's Lainey, about dates and like guys, blah, blah, blah. And she was just looking at me as shocked, and she was just like, what? She goes, if a guy, Jasmin, like, doesn't send me an invitation for a Friday date before Wednesday, I'm saying no. I'm like, what? She just was kind of going through this whole litany of like these standards. And I was like, I never thought about this. And she goes, and it's not just about how I look. She goes, it's just stuff I won't accept. She goes, you have to meet me here. I'm not going to move forward. And so I started thinking about myself as an entrepreneur, and first generation entrepreneur. I mean, we have lots of hustlepreneurs in my family, but not an actual first generation, like build an actual company. And so trying to navigate that world, how do I position myself, all the journey of trying to make mistakes but make money and figure out how to hire. And I started thinking about the same analogy of this idea of we should all have these robust bulletproof standards. We should all say, no matter whether we're starting our company today, it's at the idea phase, or we're raising like a Series C or D, we should treat ourselves as the standards that we deserve. And so I started thinking when I first started, if you were going to put my name on an event, or you were going to hire me, I basically would do whatever. I had no standards. I was just so excited to get a client. And I started talking I've mentored lots of young women, and I realized it was very similar to women in the corporate space too. You just get started and you're kind of like excited to build your career, but you're kind of there's no kind of standard at all. And so this idea of Pretty Girls Have Option is really not about looks. It's really about, we have the power now today to reimagine what it means to build a hot brand. And so this idea of personal branding has been a hot topic for a long time. But it's nebulous too, like it's vague, because you have a lot of people talking about it. And I started thinking about, okay, can we talk about navigating through entrepreneurship? Can we talk about navigating making colossal mistakes, the kind that Facebook reminds you of? Like I'll get a reminder on that Facebook thing. I'm like, ooh, I've had a couple like relationships too. I was like, I totally wiped that person away from my memory. Like literally, I forgot about that year. But even business mistakes I've made, I was like, okay, can I figure out how to use personal branding to make all that stuff work? And then also tie it into this idea of, as businesswomen, we are allowed to set strict boundaries for ourselves. And it doesn't matter if we're just getting started, if we had a horrible divorce, if we made mistakes, like we still are allowed to establish these standards. And so I believe that we're at a time where we can kind of create this kind of hot personal brand. And it's actually, I had a friend come up with a phrase called professional too. And this is the idea of kind of merging this personal and professional world together. And so that's really where pretty girls do have options, but we're really reimagine what it means to be pretty and what it means to be a hot brand. So I think it's not the same pretty that we always thought. And I've always been frustrated when I've heard about some women or people getting opportunities based on their looks. And we do still live in a time like that too. We know, right? There's a vapid quality sometimes to how we operate and how we work. But I do think we're in an interesting, exciting time where we've got technology, we've got tools, we've got a lot of digital options to kind of move our careers and our brands forward. And we didn't have that before. So pretty girls do have options, but we're reimagining what pretty means today.
I love that. I love that. It is not lost on, two things are not lost on me when I look at this book. One, it's self-published.
Mm-hmm.
And two, the timing of when you wrote it. So talk a little bit about that journey and what that was like for you. Because what I also want to make sure that we all understand is that we all have something to give to the world. I always used to say when we did TEDx SMU that we all have a TED Talk within us. It's just the timing and what does the world need to hear from us. So tell me about the self-publishing and the timing of writing this book.
So as a marketer, I really wasn't really thinking about publishing a book because I always thought about it the traditional route. But as my career's kind of moved forward, one of the things that's been central and consistent is I've always been open to whatever the universe sends my way. And that means, for example, the role I'm doing in Frisco. First of all, I never came to Frisco except for IKEA. That's super IKEA right there on the tollway. I brought my U-Haul to the IKEA, y'all. I loaded that thing up and I went right on back downtown to my safe space, which is uptown, downtown. Like I never came to IKEA. So if you would ask me 4 years ago, would you be actually heading up innovation in the city of Frisco? I'm like, what? No. But I've tried to be open to the different pathways and people that have come my way. And it's really been an exciting journey, not one that's been perfect, but one that's been pretty exciting. So I've tried to be open this way. And I have a friend that he's self-published. He's now done 9 books. He's a big speaker, prolific speaker. And I was telling him I'd always been keeping these notes about just if I was talking to another woman in business, these notes I've been starting to write for a couple of years. And I said, I think I would want to write a book, but I don't know how that whole formal process goes. And I don't know if I could write a book that would even be qualified to be published. And he said, this is a different time now, Jasmin. It's very similar to how we're thinking about working right now. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, there's companies that would never even open it up to have all remote, environment. It's the same thing with book publishing. What he told me, he goes, this is a different time. People are publishing books. He said, yes, for status. So getting on a New York best time sellers list is still super impactful. But he goes, I use this for marketing. He goes, I use this to get speaking opportunities. I use it to another extension. It's very similar to how I view about podcasts. Sometimes the podcast, yes, you might be building it to build this huge community and get huge sponsors. I view podcasts the same way. It's a way for you to get your messaging out. It's a way for you to actually position yourself and also make sure that the community knows your community, whatever it is, whether it's a corporate community or its clients kind of know what your thing is. So whether you have 50 million listeners or you have 50, these are tools that we have as business owners, business women, to help kind of position ourselves. This is like the new, personal branding 3.0. And so when we started having this conversation, I saw he's getting booked to speak for $10,000 to $15,000. I was like, okay, this is where I need to be a little bit more open-minded. And so I started researching this idea of what it meant to be self-published. I knew this book, I wanted it to, 2 things, be something you could read if you're a fast reader, like in a day or a weekend. And I wanted it to fit in your purse, like a standard woman's purse. Those were the 2 things that I wanted. I never wanted it to be a huge book. Now I'm starting to work on a second book. It probably will be a bigger book. And it's a guide for when first-time CEOs, like a 365-day guide to CEOs. So that one will be a bigger book. But this one, I wanted it literally to be like you and I were talking about this conversation. So just let's just get the conversation going. And so self-publishing was the best bet for that. And I have now year to date have sold 3,000 books from that, right? Now I'm horrible at marketing, y'all. I'm like a hairstylist whose hair is a hot mess. Horrible. But I have incredible, like Heather, I have incredible people in my network. When they send me a message, they're like, hey, I read it. I'm like, how? Because horrible. If you had a book, I'd be promoting me. I'm horrible about promoting my own stuff. But it's been amazing because I've tried to really not think about the book just for a list or anything, but to usually use it to open up conversation and to position myself as someone who's passionate about women. But also I have my kind of philosophy on what it means to be a woman today. And I'm really passionate about the fact that we need to accept where we are today, like what we've been through, because a lot of us have these two separate lives, this personal life and professional life. And I know for sometimes some industries, you have to keep things separate. I get that too. But the way the world is now, your clients are going to meet your friends eventually. Like this is just kind of how it is. The world's changed. And so we have to start to change how we position ourselves. I will put a little bit of personal, a little bit of business, both. You'll never see me fully put everything. Although, Heather, I will tell you this, if I get engaged, I'm probably going to do, that's going to be on the news at this point. And literally,
we'll all be posting about it. Yeah.
It's going to be obnoxious. I'm already going to give y'all the heads up. If that it'll be obnoxious. So, but other than that, though, I put a little bit of private. I live very personally. And so I felt like the self-published book was the fastest way for me to get that out there because I wasn't viewing it as a traditional method. I was using it as a way to market myself. And it opened up the door for me to get speaking opportunities, but more importantly, get my voice out there, and it validated that my voice was heard and it meant something too, which I think we all need.
Yeah, I love that. Well, okay, so diving into the book, the first thing that really caught my eye was this brand mini audit. Mm-hmm. And I could answer most of these questions. Like most of these questions are pretty easy, like what's my favorite way to communicate? What embarrasses me the most? Those are easy. The first one really got me though. And so the first question is, what is one thing I do professionally better than anyone else? And I'm like, oh,
yeah,
better than anyone else.
Heather, I started with that though too, because, well, first of all, as someone who's worked in marketing and had an agency, the idea of us doing the same thing that companies do started to make sense for me. To this point, if you hear personal branding a whole lot, and I've sat in personal branding sessions, I've attended, I've listened to podcasts, it really is, there's some essential themes about it that are pretty consistent, but it's all over the place. And I felt like the concept of personal branding wasn't talking to women that have like screwed up stuff. Like I needed personal branding for stuff I've really messed up on, or I made huge mistakes on things. And so it felt like, okay, yeah, if my life looked like that, yeah, I can do that. But like, you got to get me over here. Like we got to make our way over there. But one of the biggest things in working with women, supporting women, advocating, investing in women for the last 12 to 15 years is consistent. We don't ask for enough money, corporate and startup.
Right.
It's insane. And it's because I've gotten to be a part of so many conversations from an investor perspective, and also just see how male pitches, but we don't ask for enough money, and then we don't brag on ourselves enough. We're very scared to talk about ourselves, to highlight ourselves. So this is why that's the very first question, because if we were looking at a traditional professional business audit for Starbucks or Amazon, that's if you're a branding consultant, we got to figure out what's going great, what's the stuff to celebrate, so that we can start to figure, okay, where's the compass for the brand here? Is it really amazing customer service? Is it the product? Is it the technology? But I got to hear what the good stuff is. And same thing, creating your own kind of personal brand story. We hear about all the other stuff you've done and helps people and done all these things, even me too, talking about the book. I am pretty good about mine, but even me, there's so much stuff I haven't talked about or worked on, just I'm really kind of focused on others. But I definitely don't have any problem talking about it. But I've talked to a couple women where they're definitely afraid of coming off as cocky, bragging, some imposter syndrome, which that's a whole other conversation. I'm on the fence with that phrase too. So you've got all this stuff going on. I'm like, I go through it, especially if I'm looking at someone, for example, though, like, Jasmin, do you mind? Let me check out do you mind looking at my website? And I always tell people, y'all, I don't have a poker face. That's one. Okay. 2, I'm cut to the chase. I will probably, if I'm going to tell you things that may make you upset, only because what I do is I talk to people for an hour or so, and then I look at the website or look at the whatever, and I'm like, if it doesn't match the things you've been talking about, the stuff you're passionate about, like if you're not all over that thing, I'm like, got to start all over. And so that first question is central to even thinking about how you position yourself professionally, or if you've got your own company. You've got to start with you first, and that I've determined is very uncomfortable for a lot of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's not, because it's the line between bragging and promoting, and we always say recognition plus results equals influence. But if we don't take that recognition, we have zero influence. So,
well, and the guys don't have any concern with this problem.
No.
They're bragging too much when they don't have nothing to be bragging about,
Yeah.
honestly. I'm like, you really don't need to talk about that like that. They don't even think of this phrase. They don't even think about this.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even something that even comes up. And this is what I'm saying. Like, I start thinking about this. I don't have a psychology degree or the background, but working with women for so long, I definitely have heard so much. And I'm like, this is coming from family. This could come from a spouse. I had a dad who was so uplifting to me and told me I could do anything since I was little. So that's why I'm not afraid to try stuff. I'm sometimes usually the only Black woman. I've never even thought of it, because my dad, since I was 4 or 5, was always like, why didn't you try that out? I had that from the beginning. So it's really fueled me to be this way. But I know we all don't have that background. And also, if we have a partner or spouse or even friends, I have girlfriends too. I don't tell them nothing about what I'm doing, because they're like, they still think I'm going to go back to whatever this place is. I was like, y'all, I've crossed over. We're already over here. Okay. It's not going back. I kind of dipped my toe back a little bit with Frisco, y'all, but it's a toe. It's a toe. I'm still over here we're over here. Yeah, because I'm crossed over. It's like Thelma and Louise when they said, let's keep going. That's exactly where we're at this point. And so I think, how do we start to talk about ourselves and not feel this anxiety, I guess?
Right. Is it kind of like a muscle? Like, once you start doing it, you get a little bit more comfortable with it, maybe?
I think so. I think if we have more women doing it, the reason why my inbox is flooded with women and female founders has always been this way, because I always am talking in a way that things are doable. Like, I'm like, hey, have you thought? So a lot of women, I think, that I did not know started businesses because I've either said something. I'll send a text message real quick or a Facebook message at like 11 o'clock. I'm like, hey, have you ever thought about this? Just because it's more of a big sister situation. The encouragement and the support of others to say it doesn't become this horrible thing or this scary thing. I think sometimes, not to go on a different path, women are sometimes our worst enemy. And I was talking to a girlfriend yesterday about this. Some of my strongest allies and mentors have been men. And I thought about this, which is very painful for me too, as someone who's created agency and opportunities for women. Even some women's organizations have been tough for me too, which is why her text is some of the work I've done for the last decade in the space is creating a different way of community. When we use the hashtag women supporting women, like, I actually support women, really do it. What does that look like? Some of us who had this car way up over the first didn't get taught that. You're so busy trying to claw your way up that whole idea of supporting other women is so brand new. So I think a lot of times you just don't know, like, oh, I'm supposed to look back. Or if there's a woman having a tough time on the job, I should pull her aside, or I should try to help her. Like, I think there's part of it too. So I think it's more conversations about this, but more women maybe telling other women it's okay. And we want to hear your wins. We want to celebrate you. And I know we all would, but I think maybe us talking about it more might help. This is a conversation I've been thinking about for a long time, Heather.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so before we run out of time, I am going to read each rule. So you have provided us 7 rules, of which they're called hot brand rule. And so I'm going to read each one, and after I read the first one, tell me what's most important about this rule. Yeah. So rule number 1, establish bulletproof standards.
Yes, I think this comes to that earlier conversation of, no matter what's happened in your life, no matter if you got laid off or fired. I've had pretty much every work experience happen, you guys. And I've also screwed up on some major projects, like, because I was still learning. Also being a first generation CEO, I've made every hiring mistake, everything that you could think of. And so part of me in the beginning was like, well, why would I be positioning myself? Why would I be going after that? These big projects, because why would they hire me? Why would that be part of that? And it's the idea that no matter what has happened yesterday, today, you are allowed to set really strong standards and stick by them. It's kind of like if you were going to contact, I don't know, Calvin Klein or a designer to design a dress for you, and you're like, Calvin, I need it by Friday. And there would probably a no immediately, because no, or it'd be such a huge upcharge to make that happen. It's the same theory we should consider for ourselves too. When people ask last minute for us to do things, when they ask us to work for free, same thing, we're allowed to set these really strong standards for ourselves. And I think that this is what's missing too. And we feel like, because I just got started, so back to Lainey with her, she's like, if you ask me for a date on Friday, you cannot ask me for a same day date. She's like, that just doesn't happen. Of course, at that time, I was like, of course, if a guy's calling me. And she's like, Jazz, you need time to think about it. She goes, you need time you shouldn't feel rushed. And so it's the same idea of setting really strong standards, no matter where we are in the course of our life or our business.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, hot brand rule number 2, become a master of influence.
Yeah, when I started writing this, I think the whole idea of being an influencer was just kind of starting to happen. I think I started taking the notes for this book 2014, 15. And I think influence is definitely the standard stuff that we talk about, the stuff that people are tracking. So followers, all that stuff does matter. It does in a certain aspect of people kind of having a gauge, if you will, because influence is one of those kind of vague terms. But in the book, for me, how I've become influential is by using my influence to help others. It's the question that even when I have a networking event and when I mentor young women, it's the first thing. I have a mentee right now at SMU. She literally is me. And I'm like, I'm being tortured at this point because, oh my God, when I hear her talking, I'm like, how annoying was I? Because she's an expert at everything at 20, but I was too. But the first thing I told her, I said, Sierra, before we go in any kind of situation, I'm asking, what can I do to help you first? And that's the way I've done everything for a long time. So this is really becoming a master influence, is using your influence, no matter where you have it, because we all have it in some aspect, to help the woman next to you.
Yeah, I've been the gracious recipient of your influence many times. So thank you. Yeah. So hot brand number 3, care about the connection.
Yeah, this is really about social media, and the social media has evolved over a long time, but you've got, like, no matter if you've got 400 followers, 4,000, we've just got these people that we've got kind of collected on our social channels. We use LinkedIn, for example. When's the last time you actually looked at your connections on there and connected with someone not for anything you wanted? Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of times when I talk to new business owners or people that are looking for investment, I'm like, first of all, the first investment comes from customers. Like, before you start doing pitch competitions, and let's get a customer first, right? And most of your customers, your partners, if you're looking to build a board, are literally all around you. We just have not tapped into it, or when we do, it's super transactional. And so even for me, before I ask them, so even with her Texas, I've been building it for a while, and it's now finally going to launch. So I'll definitely be sending out asks, but it's this thing where I've tried to build my career over the last 10 years as someone who's always tried to care about my connections. So before you go, can you serve on this board? Do you know someone? Can I use you as a reference? I'm going to care about the connection. How are you? Like, when someone asks me that, I'm like, what you want? It's so rare. Actually, you know what? This would be the key. Let's go back to the dating thing for a side, Heather. Literally, yeah. If he started off with something like that, I'd be like, what? Oh my God, this might be the it's so rare. We don't ask each other this. And the girlfriends that I have in my circle, and this is either super tight or even my bigger circle, we're all very similar this way. Are you all right? And I'll tell you this too, I have a lot of phones. It's very obnoxious just because I have a lot of stuff going on. My girlfriends are the type where we have a group chat where we just check on each other. They have all of my phones in the group chat. How obnoxious is that? But they also love me, accept me for being a hot mess of stuff. They've accepted me here. They care about me. They're checking in. They're like, Jasmine, have you slept? Blah, blah, blah. How many times have you ordered Uber Eats this week? Like, they really do care. So this is about, look at who you're connected with. Go back and check in on people. How are you doing? Do you need anything? You'd be surprised. People are like, you know what, Amanda, girl, I was actually looking to get a connection to XYZ. You're like, oh my gosh, I know someone. So that's just about utilizing what we have around us. And in this fast-paced world, social media is a big part of this. We're thinking so fast forward and connecting. Social media has really, I think, reduced a lot of this kind of type of connectivity, just caring about who we're already connected to before we ask for something.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so number 4 is build a cult. Sure.
Yes. So this is when I was researching this book, I started thinking about culture because it comes back to this is really what I think personal branding is creating a culture of acceptance of who we are, of thinking about how we position ourselves. And so I started thinking about, well, if I wanted to write about culture, what does it really mean? And at the root word of culture is cult. And we've always have these negative perceptions of what cult is. But I remember Sprinkles, when Sprinkles first kind of happened, they created this kind of sensation of, they used to put out this tweet with these flavors and you would go drive around just real nuts stuff. Now that I think about it, like I would stop what I was doing. They're like, lemon, whatever. And then I would go run by Sprinkles and try to get a cupcake or whatever, right? Very much like creating this almost fanatical loyalty of the people around you, right? Like having a culture, building a culture of support around you where people are so excited to make introductions for you, are so excited to be a support for you, I think is key. But it's about creating this kind of idea that people will be excited to talk about your events and excited to talk about things you do when you create that around them too, when you also show it back. Some of these principles too, when I was writing this book, which is why I knew it was not going to be a huge book, is because it's basic stuff that we've all been talked about. But the only difference I think with this book, and I think why I've been able to sell the copies is because it's tied into real life working stuff. And it's tied into this common phrase we've heard about personal branding of tying in these work experiences, but also just the way we should treat each other and what we should do for each other. I always say, if you have like something you're trying to build a following for, have you done that for someone else? Have you helped to create? It really truly, and this is why I've been able to do a lot of this stuff over the last year. It's not because I'm an expert or perfect by any means, and most people that know me is super flawed in this way, but I've always tried to create what I'm trying to create for others. I've always tried to do that. And it's just kind of the universe, I think, plants people in your life. And the times when I haven't done that, the universe sent me the people I didn't want either, or the projects that end up being like horrible. So that's really what that's about. If you, whatever reaction you're looking to create or looking to have, you've got to start thinking about how to do that for others.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so rule number 5, create opportunities where none exist.
Very similar. My dad was really instrumental in this because he was the oldest of 6 from South Dallas. He started working when he was 10. He's no longer here, but he was the oldest of 10. He was the oldest of 6 and started working at a very, very early age. The opportunities we had, I went to private schools because my dad decided to clean this school for us. Like, these are the things where we just have, it's been ingrained that you create the opportunity for you. I never forget my first year at SMU, I didn't have a car the first year. Second year, I finally got a Chevy Corsica, but the right door didn't open. So I barely drove that because come on. But I never forget my first year. I was like, Dad, we're poor. He was like, yeah, I know. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it at SMU. And he was just like, well, he said, you knew that when you were in school. He goes, nothing's really changed. He goes, but Jasmine, what you've always had, and it's more valuable than money, is you've had ideas, and you've always been taught to create opportunities even when you don't have any. And so being a hot brand means creating opportunities, looking for places to have opportunity. I don't wait for them. I'm constantly looking for them. And if I build a community of culture, and if I care about the connections, these opportunities start to come my way. It's really what's happened for me. And so all these things kind of overlap. A hot brand is, and this is reimagined what Pretty or Hot is is someone that cares about other people, they care about the connection, not just using the connections for themselves, but they're also finding opportunities. And you can go out there and look for the opportunities, but by creating this community and this culture around you, people are constantly, I'm always on the pathway of opportunities because I've tried to create the same for others always.
Yeah, love that. Okay, so number 6 is actually a doing rule, and it's called determine your current personal brand value. So I will say that I actually did this exercise in the book.
You did.
And yes, I did. And I scored a 2.7, which is not great.
Okay, so you should explain maybe the kind of maybe break it down.
Yeah. So so it's actually on page 75 and 76. And you so there's 4 different things that you're scoring yourself on, self-assessment. So the first one is your digital IQ. The next one is your influence level. The next is your mistake failure ranking. And then the last one is opportunities. So I feel like I do, that I probably scored myself the least in the influence level and the digital IQ. And so when you do the math of the thing, I land in the warming up category. So I'm definitely not a hot brand yet, but I am warming up to being one.
Well, and the reason why, Heather, I did this back to this idea of thinking about what big brands do. So they do brand audits. And this idea of personal branding to me was too vague because I was like, I need something tangible. And so I started thinking, well, what if we could actually get super nerdy with it? What if we could put a formula? But I was like, well, what would be in the formula? And it's exactly these ideas of what to me would be a brand right now that's relevant, a personal brand, and it's a digital IQ. You have to have some presence on social media, like full stop. Now, this is someone I don't actually hate social media. I'm also an introvert too, which people never believe. So social media is exhausting for me, but you have to have, it's a free tool. Like this is just about us using what we have. You have to have something. That doesn't mean you have to be, prolific and on there all the time and like doing it where like you've got the tripod showing you walking in events and stuff. But you have to have some presence there. And you also need to just so you get scored for having some presence, also your savviness with podcast blogs. So it's trying to give you what is your IQ for all things digital? Because digital is a big piece of being a hot brand, and digital is where we are. It's like, we can't really escape it. So you've got to be in the game to be in the game. And I think influence is back to this idea about creating influence. So are we influential ourselves, or do we create influence? So the scoring for this. And then creating opportunities for others. This is a big piece too. What I wanted to do was create this kind of formula that gave credit for the things we're doing for others, but also for ourselves. So if you're someone that doesn't talk about yourself and you don't put yourself out there, you would probably score low on this. The mistakes failure though is you actually get scored the highest. This is the one metric that you get scored the highest. So the more mistakes that you've made, the higher you get on this piece. And it's because we usually aren't taught this thing. We're usually taught to be afraid or ashamed of the mistakes we had. So this is usually where you can score high. And if you're lower on the digital IQ, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, Jasmin, I need to get my LinkedIn better, but I screwed up. Last year, I screwed up a ton, or the last decade. I've made huge mistakes, right? So this is to balance out this formula. And so having a number is just a numerical way to think about, to keep yourself gauge, where am I at? What do I need to work on? This thing of like even working out, I signed up for Orange Theory, y'all. I bought the shoes. I got like one of those Apple fitness watches. Have I been? No. Okay. Like, I really need somebody. I don't know if y'all are the same, but I have to be forced to do these things. I also think this is the way about women supporting women too. It doesn't mean we don't want to come to your event, buy a ticket. Like, especially when people are like, Jasmin, can you share this on social? The people that know me, they're like, hey, here's your time window. Here's 4 different images with a Dropbox. Here's the copy. Thank you. It's meeting us where we are. And so there's lots of would love to create opportunities for other women. I've got kids, I'm busy, I'm dealing with whatever. So this is meant for, and I check my audit, I audit myself twice a year, just to say, okay, Because like, look right now, May, I had all these things to do in January. I looked at my list. I was like, I haven't done any of this stuff because stuff has happened, things, whatever. And so this is how you keep yourself relevant, is to ensure, okay, if I haven't done a whole lot with my LinkedIn this first half of the year, let me figure out what I want to start doing. Maybe I'll start to post once a week. I'm going to update my profile pic. I'm going to engage with others on LinkedIn, just something. And then I'm also going to, if the first half of the year was, if I screwed up or I didn't do these things or made a mistake, cool, I got scored high on that, right? So it's really about having a numerical way to measure your personal brand, which I hadn't really found that.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it because it forced me to really self-evaluate and be honest about where I am with social media and how much I share or don't share. So
I feel like you've been posting more though, Heather.
There's someone on this call that has been helping me make sure that happens.
Like, yeah, because I've seen it. I was like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. So
or Elizabeth, okay.
Yeah. So I've been working on that, and you know, and that was for me. That was in 2019 when I went on my own. I realized early on, if I'm not, this is the lesson I wish I would have learned at the beginning of my career. Like, I had a great network. And I did certain things during the year to kind of nurture and cultivate that network, but I wasn't as active as I really needed to be. And so, LinkedIn, y'all, it's a great tool. I think I can, I know some people are a little weirded out by being searched, and I get excited seeing my search numbers every week. Like, how people searched me.
Yeah. Well, and this thing too about we sometimes get on islands. And so I had someone I was talking to, like, okay, Jasmin, I'll re-engage my LinkedIn connections. I just don't want people thinking I'm spamming them. I was like, well, if I'm caring about the connection, you can't. So this is why it comes back to this way. If I'm literally just like, are you all right? I haven't seen you in a long time. Or I know we're connected, but can you tell me a little bit more about what you do? Full stop. Like, there's nothing that's all I'm asking. I just want to engage. This requires time. And in the book, I talk about having kind of care days because our schedules are crazy. If you know that you need to do this kind of stuff, because it's good. I feel like as women, this is the stuff we should be doing for each other. I mark it on Tuesday. Like, that's the day I'm going to knock out an hour. I'm like, I'm going to try to care about 5 or 6 connections. Say, hey, I saw your last photo. That looked amazing. Great job. Or I just want to let you know this work you've been doing is incredible. When people send me that stuff, they think I don't want to hear that. I rarely get it. So when people send me that stuff, I'm like, thank you. Because I'm not thinking about myself this way. And it's been just such good energy when I've said it to women. I'm like, I love what you've been building. Like, I just wanted to let you know. And it's like, and they're like, can I help you, Jasmin? Like, what do you need? And I'm like, I didn't need anything. I just wanted to let you know. And then literally I've noticed after that, Jasmin, I saw you posted 2 days ago that you were looking for X. I just wanted to send this your way. It just creates like that really good energy because we're in there just caring about it. So a lot of the stuff for you, especially if you're a self-employed or have a business, the stuff you're looking to launch, or it's here, it's got to be layers to it. You kind of have to take the sales hat off and just be a human being. I think that's the basics of it. And social media it's kind of got us our wiring it off a little bit. And it's back to the same old school stuff, like having these relationships. But a lot of the clients we need, the projects, the volunteers are literally right here in front of us. We just haven't really continue to care about those connections to build relationships.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so the last rule, number 7, is grace and gratitude. And grace is one of my favorite words.
Yeah, I think it was my mom, she's no longer here, but one of the things that she was really passionate about, and it was weird for a Black family, was the royal family. Like, y'all, I knew way too much about Fergie and her kids. It just was strange that we would talk about the royal family like we were related to them. So when Princess Di passed away, it was literally like somebody passed away in our family. Like, we knew all the stuff. And I think the reason why my mom loved her was her philanthropy, but also her grace to so many different people that didn't come from where she came from. And so at the end of the day, having grace towards other people, not having a perfect life, this is probably where I've had the challenges with women. Sometimes we're so hard on ourselves. And the fact that some women right now who you work with showed up today, is literally a party, because I just know there's so many women and so many people in general just going through so much. I never forget, I was at a coffee shop downtown and I was there just working on my computer having coffee, and this woman just came in and just started crying. And I was like, okay, should I say something? Finally, a guy came over to her and she's like, I cannot go back to that office. She goes, I literally cannot go back to that office. And I was like, what got her to this place? And so having grace towards others, trying to figure this stuff out is part of it. We're not all there. Nobody's going to be perfect. And then being thankful too, thanking people in this fast paced world. We forget to do it a lot. And these are like the old school stuff, right? Like thanking people, caring about people. But because things have moved so fast, there's so many positives that have come from social media technology. The fact that you can build a brand now with no money, it's huge. There's some 13-year-old y'all in some small town. I talk about this in the book. He's got 500,000 followers, y'all, in his room. And he's able to get deals going and all this stuff. There's positive and negatives to all this stuff, but this idea of caring about people and taking the time and thanking people, and being graceful when things aren't always perfect, I think is really a key ingredient to having a pretty or hot brand.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, you end the book, which I encourage everybody now to get to when we're done, go on Amazon and order it. And I'm going to leave how you chapter 11 to your own devices about how that purpose lasts forever. So go buy the book. So we're at a point here where I want you to type in questions if you have them for Jasmin. But while y'all are doing that, Jasmin, tell us about Her Texas.
Yeah, so I am a female founder. I've had both small business, but I've also built a startup too. And I had an opportunity a couple of years back to run something called Launch DFW as a platform, kind of one of the first in the North Texas for the North Texas startup community. I'm definitely a marketing girl. Those are my people, my tribe. But I had an opportunity to come in at a leadership role and really kind of dive into the startup world. It was incredible, but it was also challenging because a lot of the things you hear about kind of bro culture and startups were real. Like I had a really tough time. And so after a couple of years, I made some really great things. I made some mistakes, as all CEOs do. But after a couple of years, I was like, you know what? And I didn't own it at the time. If I'm going to be this stressed out, I can do this in my own business. So in 2019, I had left it and I kind of went in an introverted cave and I was like, okay, because the startup world was just really toxic in some aspects. And so, but during the time I was there, I met so many incredible women around the state. When I came on board, I really was thinking, Launch DFW had already been there, DFW for several years. And I felt like we're in the place where we should start thinking Texas, because DFW is so vague too, right? I mean, it's Garland, it's so to cover up so much of a region. I think sometimes the smaller cities get overlooked. So I already started building these relationships around the state with incredible female founders, organizations, investors, with this idea of maybe us becoming Launch Texas. Well, when I kind of went in the hole, all these women started reaching out. They're like, what happened? Where are you going? I'm like, I'm out, I'm done. I'm going back to creative space, whatever. But they were like, well, they started telling me all this stuff that I helped with. So, well, thank you, Jasmin. I met this investor or my co-founders because you sent an email or you hosted something. And I started thinking about, I was like, well, I know I'm slow as a turtle with email. Like it's an issue. I said, so there has to be, because I was like, okay, this felt good to hear this, but also this is something I'm passionate about anyway, just women helping each other. And I said, well, Texas is huge. Like it's 30 million people here, 16 million women. We have to have something at statewide level that would connect us. When I started researching, we don't. We only have the Texas Women's Conference, which is actually a really amazing conference. It's every November. They get big names to come in. They have this incredible conference in November, and then that's it. So you bring all these women together, and then there's no connectivity. We have Texas Women's University, but it's a university, right? So they're kind of limited and more really focused on education resources. They do have some funding opportunities too, but navigating the state and getting women to buy from each other, this is the key. Like, this is what it is. And so in 2019, I said, well, I know I would support a woman if we didn't live in the same city, but maybe this is just Jasmin. So I hosted a series of 6 events around the state, asking women in Austin, Houston, I did one in Waco, hey, if you knew a woman that needed something in another city, would you buy from her or support her? everyone was like, of course, if I knew who she was. And that's where this idea, I was just going to start doing these kind of social networking events around the state. That was the idea. And the pandemic happened. And I started hearing from these women, because I always thought this was going to be a Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, big city. I started hearing from these women in these very small towns in Texas, because we were hosting virtual meetups and happy hours. And then that's when I was like, oh, wait, this is probably bigger than just a networking event, because we've got really great orgs here locally that do programming and events. Do we have an amplifier at a statewide level? And then what does it look like from a women's leadership, women's empowerment at a statewide level? I always tell people, I think Texas is amazing and a hot mess at the same time. It's a place that's full of opportunity, and it's also a place I'm like, WTF, what's going on? And I say that because it's like most relationships, most companies, there's never anything that's perfect, right? We have a great climate here to start a company, a great company to build things, but then and when it comes to education and topics of healthcare and things for women, sometimes not quite the same. But I started thinking we have some amazing women here. And so I started, what could we do? We need to be amplifiers. So for the last couple of years, I'm kind of just building out what this could look like. In 22, my mentor I was doing these events, and we did a big Galentine's event. And I like events, but hate them at the same time. But I know they're important. And I talked to my mentor, he saw the photos. He's like, why are you hosting all these events? He goes, you hate events. I said, well, wait, I don't hate them. They're just kind of exhausting for me. He goes, build it, Jasmin, for what you need as a female founder. And that's when I was like, yeah, why don't we build a membership that's based on the two things that I know women need, is funding and networking. And so for last year, I've been building out the model of what we could look like. And so Her Texas is definitely a statewide organization that will help to build some of the interstate connectivity, get us to start spending money with each other, supporting one another, connecting investors with deal flow around the state. But our membership is really going to be fused with a new way to invest. And so for every member, we actually have an email going out next week. It launches statewide June 1st. So on the website, it's kind of a temporary site. But June 1st, we'll announce this membership. And so every member must also invest into another woman. That's part of the membership. And it's really this idea of for us, by us. I was talking to my mentor, he's an investor, and he goes, Jasmin, if you got 10,000 women to invest or donate or give $100 into some sort of a fund, he goes, that's $1 million. And that's when I started thinking about it. I was like, wait, we actually, we could do this ourselves. Yes, it's great to try to get VC money, and it's great to try to get a loan, although some of us can't. But what if we just start to fuel our own stuff? Like, why don't we start to be, when we're doing brunches and we're hanging out, like the guys go play golf at the same time they're raising $1 million round. Can we also start to reimagine what it means to be an investor? So that's really the thesis, if you will. I believe every woman can be an investor. Every woman should be an investor. What that investment looks like is we have the chance to kind of rethink what that could be. And so on June 1st, our membership will go live. It's something I've been working on for the last 2 years. And it's really a new way, a new model, if you will, of how do we invest. And so the goal is, when we get to this first fund, when we raise $1 million, we'll then turn around and give business grants through that to our members. The key is, though, in order to receive any sort of funding, you have to be a member. And to be a member, you have to invest in another woman. And so it's truly taking women, supporting women. And it's like women's empowerment, but like lighting that thing up. Because like we've got women's empowerment right now, yet women are only getting 2.6% of venture capital funding. Women are 39% of the companies here. We're 50.1% of the population here. Like we're half of the workforce. We've got incredible women leaders. Why are women failing by year 3, their companies by year 3, year 5? There's absolutely no reason for us to do this if we start to really engage our community. So it's something that has evolved over time. And I was talking to another business owner, and I was like, you as a woman, if you start a company, are allowed to blow that up. You're allowed to redo the business plan. You're allowed to pause and go take a full-time job. You're allowed to actually make a mistake, retool it. Like, you're allowed to do these things. When I was younger, I would stick with something, spend a lot of money, and it didn't go anywhere. I took my time with this one because I really said, I'm going to let myself really educate myself and learn and build a model that works for me, right? Because I'm the woman, I'm the one that's taking it, right? Like, we forget as a business owner, I'm like, oh, it's me up late at night doing this. So we're allowed to really change the course. And so we've had women, we've got probably about 10,000 on our list. And they're like, when's the membership? And I really wanted to make sure we were creating something that let us stay in our lane. We'll still do events, but like there's other orgs that do. What I hope to do is we amplify programming that's for women, specifically women-owned businesses, events. We need a statewide amplifier. And that's really kind of the big picture vision, is that we're kind of that amplifier, but more importantly, we now create another channel for funding, and that it's fueled by us. That's really kind of the mission for Her Texas.
I love that. I mean, that's just, when you get down to the core of women supporting women, that's it right there. And those numbers are sad, but that is our reality, and only we can change that reality.
That's right.
So I love that. We're getting close to time, and I just encourage you all to think about your brand. What resonated a lot for me in this book and in all the work that you do, Jasmin, is that we are all an expert in something.
Yes.
And that's where we shine. That is where, we could talk for hours about this one particular thing. And when we find that and we talk about it, then that is where we give the most to ourselves and our communities and each other. So don't be afraid of social media like I am. I'm working on it.
But Heather, here's the thing too, and I put my email you all too. So we have I've not talked about this model in full depth. Only a few people know. So on Monday, I actually was sending out a communication about kind of where we're headed. So if you guys want to receive that communication, just shoot me an email, because it'll kind of say, it'll explain kind of this mission to hopefully create more women investors in the state of Texas, but also to fuel economic growth. Like we have the power to do it ourselves, but feel free to email me. But if you need something, we should use each other, right? There's somebody who's like a badass, like TikTok. Don't get me on it. I don't even know what it is. Like, I don't even, it gives me a headache when I go on it. I don't know what people send me TikToks. It's taking up my data storage. Like, I get it though. I have to have something, especially for Her Texas. I've already tapped into my network and say, who are you using for TikTok? So even Heather, for you, it's like, there's somebody who can help you become the social media. Like, we don't have to do it ourselves. So that's really about those connections too. There's somebody who loves social media and can tell you some tips, I'm sure.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you, Jasmin, for your time. I know that this is your wheelhouse, your sweet spot, and I couldn't wait to share you with this network, and whatever we can do to support you. We will definitely be sending out information about Her Texas as well. So
thank you. No, the goal is, like I said, to create more women investors, but if you're struggling, if you know someone in your network that's got a business, there's no reason to. Like, we have a really incredible network, regardless of what you feel about Texas or you feel about the city or whatever. The women, and I know this is, I've talked to so many of them. We have an incredible sisterhood in this state of women that really want to help. And so that's really what, hopefully, besides the topics in the book, wherever you are in your journey, like, there's so many women that really want to see you excel and succeed. So if wherever you're thinking about your journey, like, there's people here who want to help you, women specifically.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. I hope everyone stays safe this afternoon with the weather that's rolling into North Texas, and have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you. We'll see you next month. And Elizabeth will always is taking suggestions. If you would like to request a topic or suggest a speaker, or if you would like to be featured, let us know. We are determined to build this community and support each other, and we want these to be fun and informative. So if you have ideas, bring them on.
Thanks, ladies.
Yeah, thank you, Jasmin.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Oh, that's right, May. Bye, see you soon.
Bye.